Have you ever wanted to sit down with your 20-year-old self and share some pieces of advice? What kinds of things would you say to your 20-year-old self? I know I've thought about it a lot lately. I'm 57, I'm from Canada, and I've been thinking and reflecting back on my life quite a bit lately. A famous psychologist, Eric Erickson, says that this is the stage where this will happen, when we reflect back and look at things that went well and things that didn't go so well. And I've come to realize that there's a few things that I would really like to sit down with myself and just pass on these pearls of wisdom. So I thought I'd like to talk about them today. And who knows, maybe they're very similar to what your list would be, and maybe there's some very different things. So grab a cup of coffee and let's chat. And I'd be really curious to hear what you would have to say to your 20-year-old self. So put it down in the comments below. Number one is that the only regrets I have in my life are the chances that I didn't take. I've had divorce. I've had some major adventures that didn't work out. So for example, I went and taught in Dubai for a little while and it did not turn out the way I thought it was going to. So I ended up coming home early. So it was very disappointing, but I'm so glad that I took the chance and I went. The two regrets I have in my life both revolve around chances I didn't take. There was a chance that I could try out for the basketball team in college, and I did really well in high school basketball, but I was so scared that if I went to college and got rejected or didn't make the team, what would that say for my success in high school? So I chickened out. I didn't go out of fear that my success would be a lie. I regret that to today. The other regret I have is not going off to France as an au pair at one time. I was learning some French, and I knew just enough that if I went to France, I would have been just fine, but didn't know enough that it was useless for me to go. And I didn't go because of a boy. And I really regret that. Had the boy been a meant to be, he would have still been there when I got back. But I chose him over that opportunity, and I still think about it today, wondering what could have happened had I taken that chance. Another thing I would tell myself to do is travel. Travel every chance that you get. I'm so grateful that my kids got that travel bug when they were young. I have two boys and they're both adults, married now, and they took that advice and went with it. And they have both been the kind of kids that would throw on a backpack and go across Europe, go across Asia, that sort of thing. I think that traveling opens your mind. It makes you more compassionate, understanding, realizing that just because you do something one way or think one way doesn't mean that it's the right way. There's different ways to think, to do things. Cultures, foods, belief systems. I think it just makes you a more well-rounded person. And as a teacher, I taught for over 30 years. I constantly reminded my kids, travel, 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 and do it when you're young. I know it's hard because, it can be expensive, but there's lots of ways to travel when you are below 30 years of age that you can't do when you're older. There's travel visas, there's opportunities to work overseas, things like that. And staying in hostels, go with a couple of friends so that there's safety in numbers, throw on a backpack and stay in hostels, for $5 a night. What an opportunity. And I really wish I would have taken more advantage of that when I was younger. Another piece of advice I'd give myself is that self-care is not self-love. So what I mean by this is going to get your nails done, going for massages, getting your hair done. That is self-care. It feels amazing, but it's not self-love. Self-love, it took me until just a couple of years ago to figure this out. Self-love is really the act of taking care of oneself the way that you would take care of your child, your grandchild. I think about it this way. When I think about the food that I've chosen to eat in the day, would I shovel that food into my grandson's mouth? Would I put him on the same diet that I have put myself on? The same goes with the way that you behave every day. The amount of TV that you watch, would you allow your child to watch that same amount of TV? The amount of or lack of exercise, would you allow your child to do the same thing? So when I think about the way I behave and my habits, I'm thinking if I would not allow my child to act that way because I love them and I want to take care of them, why am I not taking care of myself in the exact same way? And it also extends to boundaries. When you love yourself, you don't allow people to treat you a certain way, talk to you a certain way. And I've had to actually have some distance from people and actually even cut them out of my life totally, because I realized that is who they are. It's not going to change. And do I need that toxicity in my life? And the answer was no. And I love myself enough to say, I'm sorry, but you haven't earned your right to stay in my life. And that is what self-love is all about, is keeping your boundaries and keeping your bubble safe. Along those lines is a very painful lesson that I've learned, is that blood does not necessarily mean family. Family is people who love you for who you are unconditionally. They will be there. They have your back. They are a safe place to land. They are that safe harbor. And just because people are blood doesn't mean that they've earned the right to be within your life. And sometimes your friends, the people that you've chosen to have in your life, are a better source of that support system, that friendship, that love, that unconditional love, than blood family ever could be. So just because someone is a blood relation does not mean that they have a right to stay in your life and physically or verbally abuse you. Another big piece of advice I'd give myself is, Lisa, look after your health, because it doesn't matter how much money you make by the time that you are my age. If you don't have your health, you can't enjoy it anyway. You're not going to be able to travel. You're not going to be able to even go out on the town if your health is really that poor. So your health is so important. So make sure you're walking, make sure you're exercising, make sure, not too much alcohol, not too much of the carbs and sugars and all that kind of stuff. That I'm celiac, so I really need to look after my gluten intake and cut it down. And sometimes, you rebel and you just say, I want to try this, and you get mad because your diet is restricted. And then you go on a binge and then you pay the price and it's not fun. So if I could take myself by the shoulders and shake myself, that would be a big one. Lisa, please look after your health. Go outdoors a lot. Go for those hikes. Spend as much time in nature as you can. And really focus on keeping your muscles active and strong. You will appreciate it so much down the road. A big lesson I learned was to listen to my body. Our bodies have amazing ways of trying to tell us that something's wrong and that we are not in a good situation. And lots of times we won't listen. So here are 2 ways in which my body was basically trying to tell me something that I wasn't listening to. The first way was when my gut was screaming at me, you are in the wrong situation. This is not good for you. But my mind would basically override my gut and say, you're just scared, Lisa. You're just nervous. An example, when I was proposed to, and every fiber in my body said to me, no, you haven't known this person for long enough. We'd only known each other for a year or so. It's not a good fit. Like everything was telling me, No, Lisa, no, no, no. But I tried to rationalize. You're just fearful because we haven't known each other for that long. You're fearful because you've been divorced before and you don't want it to happen again. You're old enough to know that this is what you want, Lisa. You're just fearful. That's all. You'll be okay. This is good. And so I talked myself out of what my gut was screaming at me. And as it turned out, that marriage ended up being very short and full of toxicity and drama and trauma, and my gut was right the whole time. Another way in which my body was trying to tell me something was by becoming ill, even though I wasn't biologically ill. For many years, I was in a very toxic marriage, and he was quite ill, so I spent a lot of my time basically, living, doing my day job as a teacher and looking after our children and looking after him. And the weeks turn into months, turn into years, and you're just giving of yourself. But I was not happy. And eventually, the doctors thought I had something called sarcoidosis. So I ended up being referred to a specialist. When I went to the specialist, he did a whole bunch of different tests on me and said to me, "You don't have sarcoidosis, but you definitely are presenting as such, but it looks like you have organic symptoms." So basically my body was acting like I had sarcoidosis, but you don't have the organic roots for it. So, there was nothing in my body that was actually making this happen. So he said, so what happens is basically psychologically you're bringing this on. I was, what? And he says, can you think of a long-term stressor in your life? Oh yeah, I can. He says, well, it's time for you to do something about it because it's making you sick. Your body will take on trauma. It will take on chronic stress. It will take on anxiety, and it will manifest itself into illness. So my takeaway, listen to your body. Pay attention, because lots of times your body will react to things before your brain does, and your body knows the truth. And my last piece of advice to myself would be, please follow that lovely plaque that was on my mother's kitchen wall for so many years. It was, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That saying has been with me my entire life, but following it is another story. We get so caught up in trying to be everything to everybody, especially as a mom, as a teacher, and a counselor. I tried too hard to make people happy, and there's certain things that we just can't control. So as a counselor, I would notice this with a lot of the kids as well. And so what we would do is what's called control circles. So if you follow this particular design and you think about in the middle of the circle, what can you control? What's within your realm of control? Things like when you get up in the morning, what you decide to eat, who you decide to keep in and out of your life. Are you going to exercise today? Things like that. And then we branch out to the next circle where there's elements where we do have some control, but not complete. Other people, like our children, for example. Yes, we can definitely set up schedules for them for when they go to bed, what they're going to be eating for that day, who their friends are, that sort of thing. But let's be honest, we can't control every facet of their lives. And then we get to the outer circle, where there's just no way that we can control those factors. Things like the weather, our neighbors' relationships, the way that other people think about us, the politics of our nation. whether the company we work for is deciding to do a whole bunch of layoffs. These are things that are just absolutely out of our control, and therefore, why should we spend so much time worrying about them, focusing on them, just creating a bunch of anxiety over these things that in which there's nothing we can do about it? It is well documented that having control over certain things in our lives does bring us a certain amount of happiness. So what I would like to remind myself as a 20-year-old is be very clear, Lisa, about what you can control, what you can't control, have the wisdom to know what the difference is, and have the courage to actually change the things that you can. So there we are, a chat with our 20-year-old selves. Boy, that would be interesting, eh? I know I'd have a whole lot more to say than just these 7 points. So much that we learn within our 50 plus years of life, but those 7 are a good start. So I would really like to hear from you about what you would like to talk to your 20-year-old self about. So please put a couple of ideas in the comments below. And while you're there, if you wouldn't mind just hitting that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. And maybe we will meet again in the next video. Have a great day.